As people grow older, many begin to feel a sense of growing distance from those around them. This doesn't always happen because of conflict or disagreements. Sometimes it is simply the result of you changing in a different direction. Life experiences, wounds, lessons, and turning points gradually change the way you see things. Conversations that once excited you now feel dull. Topics that once made you feel like you belonged no longer create a sense of connection. You are still sitting with them, still laughing with them, but deep inside, a feeling of being out of place slowly appears, something hard to name. Many people think this is because they have become more difficult or picky, but in reality, sometimes you are simply entering a new stage of life that the people around you have not reached yet. And what is painful is that not everyone can walk with us through every stage of growth. Some relationships do not end because people stop caring for each other. They slowly drift apart when two people no longer see life through the same eyes. One of the reasons you increasingly feel lonely is because many relationships around you exist only on the surface. We meet a lot of people and talk to many of them every day, but that does not necessarily mean we are truly connected. There are people who know your schedule, know what you are doing, and even appear regularly in your life, but they do not know what you are worrying about, how you are hurting, or what you are trying to get through. Over time, people begin to crave deeper conversations rather than repeated small talk. We want to be listened to instead of only being responded to. We want to be understood instead of only being noticed. And as that need grows, shallow connections start to leave a sense of emptiness. The sad truth is that sometimes you are not lacking people around you. You are only lacking someone who truly sees who you are. Presence can be common, but understanding is rare. There is a very common paradox in life. The lonelier people feel, the more they tend to withdraw. After repeated disappointment, not being understood, or feeling that what they share is not received, many begin to keep everything inside. They still show up as usual, still smile and talk, still reply to messages, but their truest emotions are expressed less and less. Over time, they get used to handling everything alone, used to saying, "I'm fine," even when they are deeply exhausted inside. And that silence slowly creates an invisible distance between them and those around them. Because connection cannot exist without honesty from both sides. When no one knows what you are truly thinking, they also have no chance to understand you. The painful truth is that sometimes we feel like no one cares about us, while we ourselves have already closed the door to our inner world a long time ago. Some distances are not created by others, but by our own prolonged silence. When we are young, we often believe that important relationships will always remain. But as we grow older, life pulls each person in a different direction. Some are busy building their careers. Some are taking care of their families. Some are trying to get through pressures that no one can see. Gradually, conversations become less frequent. Meetings happen less often, and a sense of loneliness begins to appear. What is important is that this distance is not always caused by someone no longer caring about you. Sometimes it is simply because everyone is spending most of their energy trying to cope with their own lives. There are people who truly care about you, but no longer have the time to show it as before. There are people who want to check in on you, but are themselves exhausted. Many do not realize that growing up often comes with relationships becoming quieter, and sometimes that silence is not a sign of loss. It is simply a sign that everyone is carrying their own invisible burdens that others cannot see. There is a truth many people only realize when they grow up. The feeling of loneliness does not always come from losing relationships, but from seeking a deeper kind of connection. Casual conversations that once felt enough to make you happy no longer bring the same feeling. You begin to want to be listened to more than to be noticed, to be understood more than to be acknowledged, to be around people where you can be yourself instead of constantly trying to fit in. But the problem is that connections like this are very rare, and in the time before you find people who truly resonate with you, it is easy to feel out of place in a crowd. Many people think they are becoming more lonely than before, but in reality, they are simply becoming more honest with their own emotional needs. They no longer want to maintain relationships just to fill a gap, because the more you grow, the more you realize that one genuine connection is worth far more than being surrounded by many people. Another reason you may increasingly feel lonely is that you are beginning to see life differently from most people around you. The more you go through, the more your way of thinking, feeling, and what you consider important changes. Things you once pursued with excitement may no longer interest you. Conversations you could once join for hours now feel draining. And as these inner changes happen quietly, you may find it harder and harder to feel aligned with the people around you. Not because they are not good, and not because you have become distant. It is simply because everyone is on a different path. Many people feel lonely in adulthood because they no longer belong to the spaces that once felt familiar. But sometimes this is not a loss of connection. It is simply a sign that you are growing and beginning to seek people and conversations that fit the version of you that exists now. What makes many people feel the loneliest is not the absence of others around them, but the feeling that they cannot truly be themselves in their relationships. Over time, many people learn to wear different masks in order to be accepted. They try to become more cheerful, more agreeable, stronger, or more aligned with other people's expectations. But the more they try to maintain that image, the more distant they feel from themselves. Because a relationship can only create real connection when a person is allowed to show up as who they truly are. When you always have to carefully choose your words, hide your real emotions, or fear that others might see your vulnerable sides, closeness slowly disappears. People may still like the version of you that you present, but deep inside you still feel lonely because no one truly knows who you are. And sometimes the deepest feeling of being lost is not standing alone in a crowd. It is losing yourself in order to belong somewhere. If you have been feeling lonely in your relationships lately, the first thing you should know is that this feeling is not unusual. Many adults are going through the same thing. They still have friends. They still have daily conversations. But somewhere inside, there is still an unnameable emptiness. Because as people grow older, they begin to realize that the number of relationships does not determine the feeling of connection. What truly creates real connection is understanding, sincerity, and the sense of being able to be yourself when you are with someone. There are periods in life when we have to go through these quiet phases. These are moments that may make you think you are lonely. but in reality, they are helping you understand yourself more deeply, to understand what you need, to understand who truly matters, and to understand that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay forever. Some people come to teach you a lesson. Some come to walk with you for a part of the journey, and some will stay. So do not be too afraid of loneliness. Sometimes it is simply a sign that you are growing up.